Good Wednesday to you, and welcome to Wednesdays with Pastor V as we spend some time with our announcements for this week and with prayer requests and a Lenten word for today. Our announcements for just this week, we will do a subsequent announcement video for all of next week's announcements because they are extensive and we don't want to spend that time on today because we want you to hear everything. So, on to this week, we want to be sure to know that we have our Wednesday night Lenten worship on this evening. Steadfast, unified, and humbly reflecting on the grace of Christ. And our preacher who will bring the message on tonight is Reverend Dr. Jill Jackson. We hope that you will plan to be with us on this evening. I know that there are some surprises that are going to be in this worship service, and so you don't want to miss it. Please do the best you can to be with us this evening on the Bible study line. And if you will look in your your Friday correspondence, you will find that information. We also want you to know that tomorrow we will have our outreach, our food pantry outreach. We thank God for Reverend Johnny Brinson and that team, inclusive of the team for outreach, the ministry to men, evangelism, and any others who are a part of making sure that those in the community receive the goods and services that they need in order to survive and to thrive. We're grateful to God for this ministry. On Saturday, the Youth and Young Adult District Conference will be at Carter. And so we want to make sure that we are there to greet those who will come. We want to be in attendance, those of us who can and will, as well as being good hosts for those who will arrive, and to make sure that anything that anyone needs, that we're available to make sure that that happens. That meeting begins at 9 a.m. and will end approximately 2 p.m. We will give a lunch that they will be able to take with them so that we can be prepared for Stewart Chapel, who will need to be there on Sunday morning. So we thank God for each of you, and we thank you for heeding to these announcements. And we know that we will be able to do all that has been assigned to us to do. Let me thank each of you for this past weekend, for those who came to convocation and supported, those of us who were on the program. And then on Sunday, what a wonderful time in fellowship and worship we had as we celebrated 113 years of Carter Metropolitan. We thank you for each of you for your gifts, for your attendance, and those of you who have not yet given, please continue to know that that $113 gift above your tithes and offering is expected and hoped for, so that we can continue to do the things that have been assigned to Carter to do to make a difference in the lives of others. Thank you so very much in advance. We want to keep those who are on our prayer list in our minds and in our hearts. We want to pray for those bereaved families, including the family, the Amos and Robertson families, as they are continuing to be in bereavement for their uncle, cousin, whose services were this past weekend. We know that there are other families who have experienced loss in the last several weeks and months. Let us keep each of those persons in our prayers as well. We are praying for those who are ill and those who are convalescing. We want to especially lift up Sister Barbara Holston, Brother Roosevelt G., and Sister Joanna Roberts. Sister Holston and Brother G are in the hospital. Sister Roberts will go into the hospital on Monday for the final, we pray, surgery, so that she will be able to get back on her feet so that she can continue to give God her best. We are praying for Sister Holston and Brother G as they are finding out what they need to do, and doctors are finding out how best to treat them so that they can move forward. in doing God's will. We also want to continue to pray for Brother Mark Brown, Sister Rita Jackson, Dr. Nancy Sims, and Sister Emma Johnson. Let's keep them in our prayers as they convalesce, as they strengthen, and as they are able to share with us on a consistent basis. Thank you for that in advance. Our Lenten word today comes from John the 11th chapter, beginning at the 11th verse. The 11th verse says this: After he had said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him." Jesus has already been told that Lazarus is ill, and it has been 2 days since he received that information, and then he decided to go to where Lazarus is in order for God to get the glory. They don't quite know what they're dealing with, so this is their reply. They say, "Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better." Jesus had been speaking of his death, but the disciples thought he meant a natural sleep. Often when Jesus is speaking, when God is speaking to us, we do not hear clearly. That's why our thought today is to hear well. Jesus was trying to subtly tell them that there was need for them to go back to that place that was a place of danger for Jesus, because there had been threats against his life in Judea. But Jesus knew that he had to return to Bethany because of two reasons. One, he loved Lazarus. Lazarus, Mary, and Martha were those whom he looked to for his place of solace. But also he knew that God was going to use this situation to get the glory and to teach those who would not believe. So Jesus says to them very plainly, "Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Sometimes we are disturbed or find ourselves upset by the way that sometimes it seems that God does things in our lives in a very matter-of-fact way. Jesus was very matter-of-fact. We have many instances where we find that Jesus was extremely matter-of-fact. However, it is necessary sometimes for God to speak to us quite plainly so that we will know unequivocally that this is coming from God. God will try to show us often in ways that God reveals God's self in our environment, in situations, in things that are going on around us. But so often we miss those things because our ears and our eyes are not keenly attuned to what God is trying to do, what God is trying to say to us. So our thought for today is that as we continue this journey toward crucifixion and toward resurrection, let us remember to hear well, for there are things that God is showing us all the time. You remember the color purple? And the song said, "Can't sleep at night," and you're wondering why? Maybe God is trying to tell you something. Well, there are times when God is trying to tell us things subtly, in ways in which we can receive it, and in ways in which it will not disturb us. But we miss it because we're really not listening well. So my encouragement to us today is that we hear well, so that we do not have to hear the abrasiveness, feel the abrasiveness of when God has to give us a message in a way that may be disturbing or uncomfortable because we didn't take the time to be still and hear God in those ways in which God will approach us before it had to come to that. I encourage you to listen intently to what God may say to you in everything that you're doing, in every place that you are going in, so that you will be able to see God and hear God without God having to lay you on your back or to make you have to go through something so that you can hear and see and understand what God is trying to tell us. Go forth today, listen well, and then hear well what God has to say to us. I pray that God will bless and keep you all as we continue through this week. Pray to see you on this evening as we give God the praise for God's grace through Jesus Christ in our Lenten worship. We will have prayer meeting at 6:30 and then go into our Lenten worship. I pray to see you there. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.